Hello, everyone. Welcome to Charmed Persons. And woo! And this evening's just chatting session. Psych! Gotcha. You thought this was going to be a Monsterhearts game. Well, it kind of is, but it's mostly just talking about the first 8 episodes of our long-standing Monsterhearts campaign. So we had a bit of a wild few days / 8 sessions that kind of ended in a beautiful little arc at the end of last episode. So instead of playing another session, we are going to talk about what went down in those past 8 episodes. My name is Angie, and I'll be your host this evening. And with me, I have my lovely players, Zach, who plays Steve Taylor, Sophie, who is playing Josie Betteker, Jenn, who is playing Onyx Smith, and Matt, who is playing Vernon Jasper, not Jasper Vernon. I will say it right this entire time. And then maybe, I don't know if you caught the first few episodes, you might remember Emily Tabor as Ronni Marx, who mysteriously disappeared after a jarring event in the woods after the first day of school, and has not been seen or heard from since. So we wanted to remind you what she looked like. There she is. Look at her. All right, thank you for coming, Emily. No, Emily's going to join us for this talk back, and I want to hear from her as well, because some of these questions are for her, some of them are for y'all, and ask each other questions. Also, if you are joining us for this just chatting session, I see you right there in your computer. This is a subscriber-only chat. So if you want to ask us questions, if you want to ask the players questions about their characters, about Monsterhearts in general, if you have any questions for me as the Master of Ceremonies, go ahead and just subscribe for like 1 month. Just like $4.99 for like 1 month. Yeah, and then you don't, if you hate it, if you absolutely are like, this is stinky, I won't do it again, then you... Merry Christmas to us, right? Happy holidays. So do that. Click that right now. If you have a Prime account, you get a free Twitch subscription, and if you're not using it, use that for this chat, because I know you have questions. Come on, let's be honest. Okay. Hi everyone. I'm back. Make sure I'm not gonna cough. We're good. Okay. Okay. So, to start us off, we never really talked much about where your characters came from. We did a lot of world building together as your characters, but I want to hear about where you started with this character, like what drove you to choose the skin that you chose. How did you kind of go about creating the nuances of your character? And then following it up all the way to what is the most surprising thing that you discovered throughout these 8 episodes about your character that maybe you didn't have before, or that kind of came about through the gameplay. And whoever wants to start us off.
I can go. Because mine's pretty straightforward.
Hell yeah.
Ronni Marx is Veronica Mars.
Not copyright.
I just finished watching Veronica. Yeah, right. I had just finished watching Veronica Mars for the first time when we were about to start, and it is like a quintessential, like over the top teen drama, like teens in very adult situations kind of, vibe. And so I felt like it just went with Monsterhearts really well. So I made Veronica Mars. That's me.
You did. I will say that kind of goes perfectly into my specific question for you, Emily, and we can get back to everybody else's character stuff. But you have a homebrewed skin, essentially.
Oh, yeah.
Like, we sat down and made a skin that was sort of based on the mortal skin. So in Monsterhearts, for anybody who hasn't played it before, out there who is now clicking subscribe, right now, Monsterhearts is a D6 system, so it doesn't use a full set of dice, it just uses D6. And it the character creation is based on skins, and there is a skin called the mortal skin that we kind of adapted for you, and we called it, I think, the sleuth, right?
Yeah, the idea, I sort of like tweaked Veronica Mars enough to be like, since there is so much paranormal in Monsterhearts, instead of like a private investigator, her dad is a paranormal investigator.
Yeah. We never got to see much of Ken, so we'll see.
We'll be back.
He looks like Stanley Tucci. Stanley Tucci, also sponsored.
No, it was fun to homebrew the skin because we were able to like, I don't think there's anything that we just completely made up in terms of moves. We like borrowed from a bunch of different places.
Mm-hmm.
So we like, it was just fun to like start with the idea of a character and kind of create the skin around it.
Yeah.
I can talk about Onyx. I think what drew me to the werewolf skin originally was like a really like classic depiction of like the darkest self, like becoming your werewolf self when you are your darkest self. And that just felt like a fun thing to get to play with, like when I would turn into my wolf form, like had kind of a mechanism within the game. And then I oftentimes, when I play RPGs, like end up playing a version of myself, and I wanted to like not do that. I wanted to play someone who was way more like aggressive and rebellious as a teen than I was. And yeah, just kind of like trying to make choices that like I wouldn't naturally make, which is fun. I was a very good homeschooled little teen, so a very different person. But one thing that did surprise me about Onyx as we started playing is like she feels very, very family oriented still. She's very like protective of her people, so that was fun to find like kind of that heart at the center of her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I kind of, that also took me by surprise. I mean, we've talked about this, like the fact that our two characters became friends off of that.
Yeah.
What a pleasant discovery.
Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I knew I wanted to be hot. Well, I chose oh wow, weird. I chose vampire. I think because it's cool and vampires are cool and the abilities are very cool, but I was mostly drawn by the cold aspect of it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of playing, or like one of my favorite emotional archetype is, cold-hearted, that, person who learns to let something in,
Mm-hmm.
Scrooge like. So I think that was my thought. I didn't want to be like an evil vampire, but rude maybe is the word, so that's fun. I think the thing that I've learned is this podcast. I had no concept of that. I can't even remember how this happened.
I know. I was actually thinking about that when I was writing a recap. Was like, what was it Cora that
I think
set it
so.
up? Or I would have to go back and like watch the episodes, because there was like, all of a sudden it was like somebody was like, Vernon, you should be a podcast host, or like you should do an investigatory podcast.
My first thought when I remember my first thought was obviously going to recruit Ronni because Ronni is an investigator.
Mm-hmm.
But that was before Ronni disappeared, obviously, and is disappeared. And then it was the moment when Steve came on the podcast, was a real eye-opening moment for me, because I realized I needed to like do a podcast. I didn't even know what it was about. It was fun. I think that being the host of this podcast is going to take Vernon's characters to places I didn't intend, in a kind of fun, exciting way.
Have you ever seen What We Do in the Shadows, Matt?
Yes.
It seems like Vernon might be closer to an energy vampire than an actual vampire. Especially with the podcast. Like, that's his way of draining people, is putting out the podcast.
That's funny. I've never thought about that, but that's right.
It is biting journalism.
But he's a hot energy vampire. Oh, I get it. Nice. Good job.
When Sophie laughs at jokes like that, I know that I'm intelligent.
Not funny, intelligent. I
love it. Yeah, speaking of Sophie, Josie is a fun, because hearing y'all talk about it, like trying to do characters that you feel akin to or are very far from your experience of like high school. I love Monsterhearts because it feels like getting to revisit that, where I didn't have a great experience in high school, and so there's like some therapy in there. And this time, having played now a few times, it's like, ooh, what skin do I want to play? And Zach jumped on the witch right away, and I was like, damn, because I had such a fun time with that, playing as the character Sophie. And then I was like, I don't know what I want to do. I want to be a different skin, and one that feels like comfortable for me to be in for a while, because we went into this with the intention of playing this indefinitely, with no clear like end goal in mind. And Ghost was the one that kind of spoke to me the most out of kind of like the options that we had. And Angie and I hung out one night and we're like, oh, but how do we do that? Like, who did my dad kill me? Did like who is the force behind Josie's demise, and how does that fit? Because I wanted to be somebody who didn't know that they were dead. I knew that, and moving to a new town and not knowing that you've passed, but having this connection with a sibling, and for me, it feels very attached to kind of who I was and what my relationship with some of my siblings are. Duffy feels a lot like my brother Gabe. My sister's name is actually Josie. So I'm injecting a lot in a similar way that Zach is of my own family into this, and kind of leaning into what is maybe more of a femme experience, but who I was in high school anyway. And that's, I think, where a lot of my feelings around Josie came from. And then of course you add the fact that, like, I always feel like I'm playing the most subdued normal person in any of these games. Where playing the mortal and playing the witch, where it's like you got to kind of keep yourself held back in a lot of ways, and you are kind of just a person guided by like your own motivations, but not guided by some sort of like primal force. And now playing as an actual supernatural entity in this one feels like ooh, I'm drawn to being more like feral and emotionally reactive, rather than just, oh, what would I do in this moment? Like, no, I've got trauma as a child, and what would that do? So,
aw, little ragtag bunch. It has been fun, I think, especially since we didn't have you, Sophie, for the first session, of having you be the ghost and not be there for the first session, and like all of these little this arc has done really interesting things with just like playing with people's absences, and like especially like obviously with Emily as Ronni, like having Ronni go missing because we have Emily gone for a large portion of the sessions, having Sophie being gone that first session and not getting akin with the group right away and having to like kind of find her own space. Even Onyx and Jasper being out that one, Vernon. You know what it is? It's fucking Twilight. It's because Twilight, that one character's name is Jasper.
Oh,
fucking
yeah.
Everybody blame Twilight.
Yeah, don't blame me for naming the character that.
Vernon and Onyx being gone for that one part of the woods session, like really like creating all of these different, you know, heightened senses of connection instead of y'all just being together the whole time and like figuring out, oh, where's my relationship going? Like it's gone really organically because of, you know, the nature of our scheduling, which I think is really cool to bring into an RPG, because, you know, scheduling is the big bad. But in especially like a game like this, where you know, it is a little bit more organic, it is a little bit easier to kind of track and untrack and like take away, like we don't have to go to Vernon's like little cottage house if Vernon isn't here that day, or we don't have to go to, like, it's not just a whole big group all the time, which I think is really cool for the way that, you know, we want this game to run. Speaking of that, everybody in this room, in the Zoom room, has played Monsterhearts before, and I know this is kind of our own experiment in an extended version of that. How's it feeling? Do we like it? Are we enjoying like this continuous action?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm really excited about it, because if in the shorter seasons, just 4 sessions or whatever, felt like I was like, I gotta wring everything out of this character that I can. I just gotta do everything, and it's fun to be a little less frantic and a little more restrained with the characters, but still feral, of course.
I also feel like kind of what you were saying, Angie, about these like organic connections between everyone. The only other time I've played is with y'all. And I feel like because it's so contained in that game, there were really like kind of like two groups of people, and some characters like didn't interact like a whole lot. And I feel like we now have the time where everybody is building these kind of individual connections. Like Ronni and Steve like have known each other for a long time. Steve and Onyx like kind of became fast friends. Onyx and Vernon now have done this podcast thing together. Steve had Josie over for dinner. Like there's all these like individual like connections and stuff that it's just nice to like take the time to get to explore all of those, rather than being like, oh, if my character like doesn't immediately find a connection with someone else, I like might not interact with them in 3 sessions,
Yeah, I agree. It did in the other sessions. It felt forced to try to like find relationships with people, where this one has been happen a little naturally. And I like that it's been such a like slow burn. Like really, even in 8 episodes, we haven't really figured anything out. Like none of the mysteries have been solved, and like, but that, and like not in a bad way though. It's like and we're slowly getting there. We're slowly like learning things, and I like it. I think that a good horror movie has you not really knowing what the fuck is going on, and then in the last 30 minutes, it's like, okay, how do we deal with it now that we know what the fuck is going on? And so I really think it's been following that template a little bit more, which has been really interesting. And I'll be interested to see when we come back if we continue with the like it took us 4 sessions to go through 24 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
So I'll be interested to see if that pace continues, or if we start doing more time jumps. I'll just be interested. Like either way, it'll be interesting. I'll just it'll be what happens with that. But yeah, I've really been enjoying because there's no like everybody else has said, there's no like push to make sure you get something in. There's time. There you got time.
Well, and that is like not that it's a bad thing, and not that it's like a blame thing, but like I could have easily been like, all right, we jump to whatever, we go from, this day to 2 days later to 4 days later we could have easily gone to the art fair because it was presented in the very first episode, like the next day or the next session, and had so much stuff happen. But because y'all kept the story going, it was so like, I feel like I'm doing so little work in terms of telling the story than just following you, and then every session like going and writing down like, oh, they did this and this, so I'm gonna plug this in, I'm gonna do this, I feel like the meme of the woman doing like equations or whatever. But
I think it's tough to move on from those moments when we have 2 friends go missing in the first like 12 hours basically, and we are getting to know everybody and kind of like, ooh, what are we all, what's our steez, and who are our parents and our backstories, in a way that we didn't get to do in any of the previous campaigns. I would say that we've got now some time to find out what's going on with Onyx's family, and get to take some time to like, hey, let's actually like do this podcast essentially, and have dinner with Steve. And I mean, in most other campaigns we really didn't meet anybody's parents. If we alluded to them existing at all, it was very like Charlie Brown. Like they exist assuredly. That we all have parents, but who knows what's going on.
It was cool the way you guys were able to take it really slow too, because it allowed Angie and I to not know really what was going on with Ronni for a while.
Yeah.
Because you guys weren't moving through time really fast, and you didn't have to really deal with like, if more than a day had passed, there would have had to be some like, okay, here are clues, or here's what's going on, you know, but it was able to like really
dicier.
slow burn.
Yeah, no, I've really enjoyed from a master of ceremonies perspective, just like following y'all, and that like feels, because in a way, and I'm sure Zach and Sophie and Matt can attest to this, and anybody else who has ever DM'd, like prepping for a D&D session requires so much from the DM. Like there is so much. You have to navigate, you know, encounters, you have to navigate maps, you have to navigate like all of these things. And I think, I don't want to say I'm lazy, but I don't live in the DM world as well, because I can't prep like that, and I don't have the foresight. Like half of this story that I have now sussed out has come from those first like 8 sessions of what y'all did. And so like that collaborative storytelling is so much fun, not only for me, but it seems like for y'all as well. And like it has been so fun to just indulge those like RP moments and be able to have them and be able to then use them against you, but also use it for a far bigger picture that like we haven't even, like Zach's right, we haven't even figured anything out yet. And like for as much as we have touched, that I have like kind of, I'm like 7-8 steps ahead maybe to just like give some, you know, direction, but I still also don't know, because it's up to all of us, and that is like my favorite part about these games. Anybody else have any thoughts on the extension of Monsterhearts before I ask probably the most important question of this whole thing?
Well, I was just gonna say my conception of Vernon is that he's a little bit of a loner, even though he's hot. And I think I would be a little panicked in other Monsterhearts seasons to like connect my character with the other people. Even though I even trying to keep the, you know, a little standoffish, enigmatic nature of Vernon. But in this, I felt no pressure to do that. Angie, you're doing an incredible job of just kind of weaving back and forth. I mean, it's you say you're not lazy, but what you're doing is perfect for this. I think it's incredible. It's very fun to just like, I have no idea what's going to happen. It's fun to be on a knife's edge. And then, you know, I think eventually Vernon got to the podcast with Onyx and Steve organically in a fun way that I wasn't expecting, and didn't feel forced, and it was great.
Aww. I didn't pay him to say that. Okay. So these are our player characters. Y'all come with a vast network of friends, connections, some that you created and gave to me, some that we created together via our Session 0 homeroom chart, which is kind of one of my favorite parts of this game. It's just like, I fucking love seating charts. I played teacher as a kid. I was that nerd, and so I would like make little seating charts or whatever. So a lot of characters came to life through these last 8 sessions of just like fellow students that y'all had. Dustin, who ended up going into the woods with you that night, and is really getting kind of close with Onyx in terms of trying to figure out what happened to Steve before Steve came back. We have Josh, who's one of the wrestler guys who was a little skeptical of Onyx trying to join the team and now has become friends. Duffy, who is the very energetic younger brother of Josie, very protective for being a little brother. And then Cora, obviously, who is the paramour / co-host / scorned ex of Vernon, who just so happens to live in the same proximity as him. Ooh. So all of these characters, Becca, Scotty, who were friends with Steve for a very long time, kind of like, you know, zhuzh up and fluff this world that y'all are living in. So I'm just curious, who has been like your favorite NPC, or who has been the one that you've been most curious about or most engaged in throughout this entire 8 sessions?
I've loved all the NPCs. They're all great. I love Zach and Duffy's little nerd relationship. I thought that was cute. But what I'm incredibly invested in, well, I'm also incredibly invested in Scotty and Alaska.
I knew you were going to say that because you as Zach was like,
you were like,
I noticed something pretty much immediately between those two. But what I was gonna say is, I'm so invested in the fact that I am pretty sure Josh is in love with Onyx. And I'm very invested in that plot line and want to see what happens more.
He did ask her to dinner.
I know.
End of the thing, yeah. And
I said yes.
Yes. Yeah.
We'll see.
Also proud of Cora for finally standing up for herself.
Yeah.
I'm proud of her too.
As a 14-year-old, like, it's really hard for me I do a lot of research on like what the Gen Zs are up to, because as a 14-year-old,
what are the Gen Zs up to?
I don't think Gen Z is even, isn't it? Is Gen Z still
Gen Alpha now?
Yeah.
Is it? Oh, was there a new one? Oh,
Yeah.
You gotta change your Google searches.
Well, because it is so interesting, because like even just playing this game, and you know, it's fun to listen to Jenn talk about how she was homeschooled and kind of doesn't really have any connection to this kind of world.
High school.
We don't either. We don't either, because the way that this game depicts high schoolers are like, we didn't have, like, I don't know, maybe y'all did, but I didn't have a phone in high school. Like I had a flip phone that had a few minutes on it to call my mom if she had to come pick me up, or like
I could send a text with T9 word today. That could happen today, unseen, in my hoodie pocket.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Like it's and so it's wild. So like having that moment with Cora, like I had to really go into, because like what 14-year-old girl tells off this like boy who has wooed her in such a competent way? Like that was fun.
I know we're talking about the NPCs, but I have a question for Matt. Just because Matt, I also played a vampire who treated people really poorly. And I want to know just like what your thoughts are on that, like what that experience is like. Do you find it hard to do it?
It is, it is hard. It's not, it's not hard in the moment. It's fun in the moment.
Yeah.
It's hard watching Angie role play as Cora, having to deal with my shitty attitude.
Yeah. Because it feels like it's like how everybody always tells you that the number one rule to improv is yes and, but they never tell you that you can also say no but. And so it's like you're playing the no but version, which feels weird, but it's just as valid. And it's like it's like putting your shoes on the other feet.
Yeah, and I don't even like I don't have like an end game with with Cora, or I don't know where it's going. I'm just kind of saying things to her in the moment. So I don't know.
I am really excited to see what happens with Cora, because she was really under the spell for a minute there, and is gonna be pissed now. So I feel like that'll be fun to see how she continues to show up.
How old is Vernon?
700. No, I don't know.
I was wondering if you knew the answer.
14.
14.
Gotcha.
How
long have you been 14?
Think
I don't have hair anymore.
I think it would have been / will be, who knows, fun to dive more into Ronni and Vernon's relationship, because they had that weird conversation at the beginning of the first day. And she was
didn't you guys smoke a cigarette outside the school or something?
Yeah, we smoked a cigarette.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And then nothing really came of it, but I feel like when Ronni comes back, if Ronni comes back, it'll be interesting to see what that relationship looks like.
Yeah.
Well, and
It
so
really
much
is.
happened without her. It's like she's gonna be left out regardless of like, you know, how she comes back, and so it will be interesting to see like, because Scotty has a girlfriend now, and Becca is, you know, kind of scared of Steve, and like there's just all of these dynamics that have just utterly shifted. So to see Ronni come back in
For
whatever
an entire
form,
podcast about you.
yeah, like.
Well, Ronni too was immediately suspicious of Josie.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah,
and I was like,
man,
this time I'm gonna really try to be friends with Emily's character. And immediately it was like, oh no.
He's very observant.
Oh,
by nature.
Like, oh, there you go.
Oh.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
I think I just went with like Ronnie's very observant by nature. So, and she's always looking for stuff that's off. Like, I think that she's probably good at being a detective, but also like so new to it that she's probably like making up cases in her head all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that easily could have been some case that she was just making up in her head of like, oh, well, somebody else said that they didn't see her. So let me like look into that.
Yeah.
The problem is that you were right though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Hired a kid to hack the school system.
Yeah, Eddie is now convinced that you were stolen by Russia or something. So, like,
Yeah.
that's going to be very interesting.
That was part of the like not Gen Z. I don't know what gender. I don't know. The part of the teenage thing too.
According to Sophie's research, Gen Z is 11 to 26.
Okay, so that is part of the Gen Z thing too. Is like, in Veronica Mars, like there was like a tech guy, but it was like if we're in modern day and she is really trying to like sleuth, she has to have somebody who can do tech stuff.
Yeah,
I mean that's like a bare minimum.
And Eddie's her guy.
And Eddie's the guy. And I didn't even think about that until we were making the seating chart and coming up with like, you're like, is there anybody else that you think you would like there? And I was like, she needs a tech guy.
Yeah.
I might hire Eddie for the podcast.
Ooh, to go really, really into the production quality.
Yep.
Favorite NPC, but also favorite arc of this, or favorite moment of this arc.
I mean, that dinner between Josie and fake Steve was mortifying. I mean, that was so
shout out to Adam. He couldn't join us today, but Adam really popped off.
It was fun.
That was such a cool idea in general. I'd love to know from Matt, Sophie, and Jenn what was going through your minds when Adam was introduced to Steve.
Yeah.
I was stunned. I had no clue. I thought it was a mistake.
Yeah.
That's why Adam was immediately like, so keep going. I'll tell you the story about how that whole thing came to be.
No, I want to know.
So Adam, I had asked Adam to play while Zach had to step away because it was going to be okay with 4, but then when Zach had to step away for a show, having 3, I was like, we can have one more, let's do it. And I wanted to bring in, like, that's part of my vision for this whole thing, is to bring in like guest characters and like do quick arcs and things very similar to like a television show. And Adam is one of my favorite people to play RPGs with, and so I was like, hey, like 2 or 3 episodes, can you do it? Let's go. And he was like, yeah, for sure, let me like look at the skins, think about the character. And he's like, I really like the hollow skin. And we met for coffee one day, and he was like, okay, so here it is, I'm Steve. And I was like, what? And he figured out the whole thing. He gave me this like layout of like what he is, how he got here, what his purpose was. He had a whole list of like physicalities and like things that he would say if things were said, and like how all of this stuff happened. And to the point where now I'm like going to him outside of you guys, because I'm not telling you anything because y'all are playing, but like he knows like what's gonna happen freshman year, because he came through with this whole sussed out thing, and he was just like, I'm Steve. And I was like, you're Steve. Incredible. And so and he said, Jenn specifically, we were like, okay. And he was like, what if you just show the picture of Steve when you introduce me? And I was like, oh, that's really good. And he goes, I'm pretty sure it was him that was like, I bet Jenn will think it's a mistake. I bet she'll be really
I literally did.
Yeah. And so
I was like,
so
you
that
pulled
was
up Steve's photo.
Yeah, that was Adam. Like,
Idiot.
He came with like a huge idea and was just like, went with it.
I was making the stream for his first session, and I asked you what his name was, and you were like, just put question marks. And I was like, huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a mistake too. That was great. It was a great reveal.
That was a very fun reveal.
I know I'm not trying to take over your job for you, Angie, but I feel like this
please.
might be a good transition to say goodbye to our good friend Jenn.
Oh,
Yes,
our friend Jenn. So Jenn's important and has to go to a rehearsal. So we're gonna take just a quick break to let her hop off. But stay tuned. Click the subscribe button if you haven't yet, and ask us questions. And say goodbye to Jenn real quick. Bye, Jenn.
Bye, Jenn.
Bye, Jenn.
Bye, Jenn.
Bye, Jenn.
Ah! And that's what I would say if Jenn was here. Hi, welcome back.
Why would okay.
Just because that's how I feel.
Scary.
Scary. Okay.
Decoration.
What were we talking about? Decoration.
Monsterhearts.
You're talking about Monsterhearts.
Oh, Monsterhearts.
Oh, yeah.
Any follow-ups on NPC's favorite moments of this arc of 8 episodes?
My favorite NPC is Duffy, for sure.
Duffy's the best.
Duffy is my favorite to play.
Where did the name
honestly.
Duffy come from?
I don't know.
You just thought of it?
I think it was like, this sounds like a little brother name.
It's for sure a little brother
it's
name.
the perfect name for Duffy.
I want to know what he's gonna be, what people are gonna call him at the age of 70. Like, is it still Duffy?
Dufford.
Dufford. I want to know. I want to say that his name is Dufford. Josephine and Dufford. I feel like it's an old family name or
That's
something.
funny.
Yeah.
Dufford.
Josie's parents are also, even though they've made very little appearance, just playing 2 parents at the same time. One who is just like this utter, like, sensitive stoner boy, and the other who is just like a worrywart mom, is like 2 of my favorite to play. It's just so fun.
Yeah, you pick up parent NPC roles so incredibly well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was gonna say, like, even the moment with Steve's mom, with Jenna, that it was like the moment of like, hey, get Steve some help, please, and her immediate like defensiveness of that, and it was just like, oh no, I gotta go.
Yeah, I expected Steve to not have a good relationship with his mom. That's what I was expecting going in.
Oh, really?
And then not, I mean, I didn't tell you that or anything. It was just like what I just in the back of my head, it was what I expected. And then you just played her so sweet. And I was just like, in character, I was just like, she's trying her best. Everything sucks, but she's really trying. Like,
I feel like that I'm at a point in my life, and I don't know if y'all feel the same way, but like, you watch TV shows now or movies about superheroes or teenagers or whatever, and I find myself relating more to the parents at this point in my life than the actual like main characters, and I'm like, ooh, I think that's coming into these games, is like, oh, I've been watching a lot of like, you know, Aunt May in fucking Spider-Man, and like all of these little like mom characters. So that's been fun to bring into these things and to force you to have good relationships with me.
That last I'm sorry.
Sorry. That's my normal. That's my normal being normal.
Anyway.
My Vernon's parents aren't in the picture, but maybe I should just make them up so Angie can play them, because I want Angie to play my parents.
No, but you did give me a familial relation that, not to spoil anything, might be making an appearance in the second part of this arc.
Whoa.
So that brings me to the next question. Is there something you are looking forward to in this next arc? What are you hoping to see, either like logistically or mechanically, game wise, or just like more story or any like bigger, more fleshed out parts that you're curious about?
I kind of feel like Ronnie's story is more of like an overarching thing. I'm interested to figure out more of it, and I want to figure out more of it, but I think the immediate thing, especially because like he just found her body, is like I'm really interested to see how we're gonna tackle Josie. And just like what we're gonna try to figure out with that, especially with the time jump happening. Like, what have we been doing about that? Have we just like not been talking about it? Have we been talking about it? So like I'm very that's exploring Josie's backstory. I think is something I'm very interested to get into.
Yeah, and kind of I'm glad that we're taking a quick pause to do this so that way maybe we can talk about that over the next like 2 weeks of we don't have to enact it in game, but we could maybe have a little behind the scenes. Hey, what is the next steps? What would we be doing? Hey, can we have a conflab real quick and just see
a conflab?
Because it is it is a thing that I wonder too, of like, oh, is my death and Ronnie's disappearance connected? Who knows?
I think that Steve fully thinks that Ronnie is just another body in the
At this point,
like after finding Josie, like I think he thinks it's like, okay, there's a serial killer, and I also think that he's like, especially I think when we find Steve back in December, I think there's going to be some anger to him, and maybe even a little resentment towards Josie, because like,
that Josie's here.
Why is Josie still here and Ronnie didn't come back? And I think that like that's something that he's gonna be like, even if it's subconsciously feeling.
And it's a question too of like, are we telling my parents?
Right?
Yeah.
Does anybody else outside this group know that I'm?
Are we telling Duffy?
Yeah. Oh, poor Duffy.
Well, I'm like, but the thing is with Duffy too is like,
kind of like
something's
up.
Yeah, he was kind of always kind of meant to know something, and be kind of like an anchor point that I was like almost haunting him. And the way that you come out of your darkest self as a ghost is somebody has to declare that they want you to be there, just as like to get a little meta. But it's like, oh well, that's no problem with Duffy. I feel like in my life, like now I've got this friend group that maybe they want me around, and also what a weird trauma for all of us to be sharing. That is disappearance, and then to find my body and to fight this creature in kind of a very like Stranger Things-esque way, that now disappears. And
I think there's a lot of relief in Steve too because of that.
Is this like, and what is this mother figure in the woods?
So creepy. Yeah, definitely interested in finding out more about that. But I think like we left off episode 8, going off of what Sophie just said, we left off episode 8 with everyone kind of realizing, oh, something is up with all of us. And I think that that's something I'm interested in looking at, because Steve was the only one who like very obviously and clearly had, like, he openly had something going on with him with the magic, and then Josie is apparently dead and turned invisible. Jasper stopped someone with just his words, who moments earlier had his hands around my throat, and then like Onyx's hands like turned into like claws, and and so like I think we clearly all know that there's something up with each of us, and just like how we tackle that moving forward.
That moment, so just from an MC perspective, when you have those giant group moments that need to accumulate in some sort of information being like shown or what is the word I'm looking for, like revealed, that's what I'm thinking. I was so stressed out. I was like, they're not all gonna come together, they're not all gonna want to be like doing the same thing, and like it just was like the perfect like movie amalgamation of that exact thing, Zach, of like everyone showing off their stuff. And it was just like boom, 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 two darkest selves. I like got done and I was just like, whoa, we are really good at this. Like, it was just such a real high as a game runner of just like feeling that, you know, cool, here, drop the little peeps in the little pool and like let's see what they do.
For sure. It was definitely like, if this was a Netflix series, like that was definitely the finale of season.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
And
it definitely had season 1 finale vibes.
Yeah, and then everybody's like left for a year being like, oh my god, what's this, what's that?
Yeah.
Sharing their theories, you know, it definitely had those vibes to it.
It was also really cool with like what we talked about earlier with the fact that like we got to really let everything slow burn, because I feel like when we've played in the past, it's been like, let me try to use all my abilities as quickly as I can because we don't have that much time and I'm only playing the skin, you know, like you want to get it all in. Yeah. But like, because nobody had felt that way, it allowed for like everybody's, you know, abilities and stuff to come out at the same time with the slow build to it.
Yeah.
It felt earned.
Yeah, that moment was the first time I think I had ever used any of my vampire abilities.
You had, in the like second episode, you had hypnotized somebody.
You hypnotized Becca on the train station.
Oh, yes.
Because as you were leaving to go home after the night in the woods, you hypnotized her. But then you didn't really see her again, and I think you did something else, or like you turned your attentions to Cora, so we never really... Like, the only thing Becca thinks right now is that Steve had something to do with it, because you hypnotized her to think that.
Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Okay, guys. I
Oh,
forgot about that, but that's great.
I think you also hypnotized Cora, if I'm not mistaken.
That doesn't sound right.
I don't know if you hypnotized her, but you did turn her on, and she. And
maybe that's what it was.
I had like 5 strings on her.
She like bowed, or she like gave herself to you.
That's what.
Which this is another thing that I was thinking of, is like, I love that we're starting younger and like with freshman year, because I think the way that y'all have used your moves have been really indicative of your age group, because there has been very little turn on or like rolling to turn someone on, but there's been a lot of volatile rolls and there's been a lot of cold rolls, and I think that has been really, really cool, and I'm interested to see how with like each sophomore, junior, senior year we like, because like there's moves that we haven't even touched, like no one ever, I think, except with the exception of Matt in the like talent show one, has anyone ever used their sex move. Like, has anyone ever gained enough experience to do like anything? I
have yet to ever level up.
Yeah, so like I'm excited to see those kinds of things through these arcs, and like there might only be another 1 or 2 arcs for freshman year. Like freshman year is going to end when freshman year would end. Yeah. So, you know, this time next year we're going to be doing a talkback about sophomore year. Like, that's my hope. Yeah. So yeah, any other things you want to see or plots you want to follow for the next 8 sessions? I'm ready now.
Yes. It could just completely be innocuous, but I feel like there was something up with what's her bitch in that painting.
With
the painting
Bridget?
That the teacher, yeah.
Oh, the Milk Carton Kids.
Yeah, like, because I mean, I understand it was like a supposedly a commentary on the fact that like, but why would she? I guess maybe I could be reading into it too much. Maybe it does affect, because it seems like the majority of people aren't really talking about the missing kids. Like, it is a thing, but it's not like a thing that's actively being discussed. Yeah. And so I was like, so why is she making a painting about it? I don't know. It just seemed weird. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but it seemed weird. So Angie's like,
I mean, maybe Steve is overthinking it.
Yeah.
Maybe Steve needs to follow that thread.
Yeah.
I love that though.
Vernon has her phone number, but she erased Vernon's phone number. I don't know what I'm going to do with that, but I do have noted that many times in my notes.
That Bridget has your phone number?
That I have her phone number, but she does not have mine. Or at least she erased mine.
So you could message her kind of anonymously.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. Things are gonna get weird.
I
love that.
I think it's fun because I thought that Ronni was gonna like end up helping me find my body was gonna be like arc 1, and now it's like, well, we gotta help. Now I'm gonna try and figure out where Ronni is.
Yeah.
Feels like a thing, and I think talking about that of like, is Emily coming back anytime soon, or do we, to not get meta, but like, do we ignore that Ronnie's gone? Because it's gonna be a while before.
Yeah.
That's always the
Ronni
way
can
we
come
gotta
back.
think about it.
Yeah.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Emily, just quit everything in your life and just
That's
play
true.
games
I
with us
mean,
forever.
if we're being completely honest with ourselves, I'm working on it. I'm really trying.
If we're being completely honest, I'm trying to quit. Amazing. Anything else? Y'all have any?
I mean, I know we already talked about it, but the mother in the woods. I gotta figure out what the fuck.
Yeah. You guys have gotten a lot of, I was like, there's gonna be like 3 major points to this, and that's
Major points?
Ronnie's disappearance, major points. There's Ronnie's disappearance, just generally. There's the greater overarching scheme of this whole paranormal existence of Angelwood. And then there is the, like, what the fuck is up with all y'all? And, like, I think we pretty much hit all of those in this arc, and now it's up to that to, like, move the story forward. I'm psyched.
I'm
just
psyched.
gonna
I'm
say
really
it.
excited about this. Yeah.
Psyched.
Psychata!
Psychata.
Psychata! We're suddenly animes now. Psychata! Psychata! Oh god!
That sounded.
And that's Monsterhearts, everyone. Zach's gone out of shame. Before we become the anime version of ourselves. Thank you so much for tuning into this Talkback and this ongoing Monsterhearts campaign. We're about halfway through freshman year for these kids, and the plan is to do sophomore, junior, and senior year. So we got a lot coming for you. But this is not all us here at CharmedPersons are doing. Zach, are you going to come back now? Where did you go? I need you to look at you while I do the schedule part because you're my rock.
Which one's the real Zach?
Oh, decoration.
It's been black bagged.
Oh no, this is just what you have to look forward to for the next episode. What happened to Steve again? Sunday.
Steve made a sex noise on stream and got embarrassed.
His face is so red he had to cover it up. Sunday the 10th, we're going to be back in Teheroth for session 49. Wow, we're almost to session 50. Holy heck. Also on the 12th, so next Tuesday, Zach will be interviewing his wife, my wife, Emily, for a special Meet the Persons at 6:30 p.m. So go ahead and tune in for that because Emily is going to be GMing a special little holiday one-shot. If you tuned into Emily's little holiday one-shot last year, it was really super fun and a little bit scary. So get to look forward to that again in the coming weeks. But we're going to do a little Meet the Persons with her just to talk to her before that. And then this time next week, we are back with The Curse of Strahd. Continuation with very little palatable 1.5 hour sessions for you. If you want, I know, boo for players, but if you want to catch some solid quality D&D and you don't want to do a live watch of 4.5 hours on a Thursday, sorry, Critical Role, we love you, but you're just not as good as us.
Wow.
Just kidding.
Throw
Just
down the
kidding.
gauntlet.
I would play with you if you want to. I think you need
Angie's just using CharmedPersons to get on Critical Role.
Could you imagine? But yeah, so stay tuned next week. As always, tune into all our socials at CharmedPersons. And if you liked this talkback and you want to subscribe, I know I pushed it at the beginning, but that is the way that we make our stream better, with your subscriptions and your financial help, because this world runs on money whether we like it or not, and we love you for that. So thank you for coming, thank you for listening, thank you for playing, all of you. Stay feral, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Jen.